It was barely dawn when the roar of a chainsaw tore through my dreams. Not a letter, not a phone call, not even one of those sanctimonious HOA notices Margaret loved to slap on my mailbox. No, she rolled up at sunrise with a landscaper, a couple of kids in neon vests, and the smug certainty of someone who thought she ruled the cul-de-sac. I stumbled outside, still in flannel pajama pants, barefoot, blinking against the light. The buzz wasn't bees. It was a gas-powered, thorn-shredding, memory-killing chainsaw slicing through my backyard rose garden. By the time I reached the sidewalk, it was over. My grandmother's heirloom roses, crimson, amber, and ivory, lay in a butchered pile, petals crushed, roots ripped out like garbage. Margaret stood there, clipboard in one hand, iced coffee in the other, lips curled in a faint smirk. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just locked eyes with her and said, "You've just sown your reckoning." Let me back up. I'm Henry, 52, a widower living on Maple Grove Lane in a quiet suburban pocket of Ohio. For 7 years, my life has centered on that rose garden. It wasn't just a hobby, it was a lifeline, a tether to my grandmother, who raised me after my parents died. She passed from heart failure a decade ago, and her ashes rest beneath the first climbing rose we planted together. She taught me to prune, to fertilize, to spot aphids by their tiny bites. That garden was more than flowers. It was her laugh, her stories, her love. It was my sanctuary. Margaret, our HOA president, couldn't stand anything she didn't control. She ran our neighborhood like a fiefdom, finding people for unapproved mailbox colors or kids' chalk drawings that cluttered the sidewalk. My vibrant roses, spilling over the path in defiant color, drove her up the wall. I kept them neat, trimmed, mulched, labeled, but to her, anything bolder than a boxwood hedge was a personal insult. She'd griped before, saying the roses attracted bees too close to the street or that their scent overwhelmed pedestrians. I complied with her nitpicks, even submitted a plant inventory to the HOA. No reply, so I thought she'd dropped it. I was wrong. That morning, she claimed the board had approved the removal. Later, I'd learned she'd forged the letterhead and strong-armed the landscaper. When I asked why she didn't warn me, she tilted her head and said, "Your plants were non-compliant, Henry. This is just policy." I stood over the wreckage, hands shaking, heart hollow. The landscaper muttered an apology. One of the kids whispered, "Sorry, sir." But Margaret just sauntered off, her blonde ponytail catching the sun like she was the star of her victory parade. I spent hours salvaging what I could, a few roots, a single stem with a half-dead bloom. That night, I didn't eat. I stared at the barren soil through my kitchen window, grief hardening into something sharper. Not anger, but focus. 2 days later, I called an old college buddy, Ellen, a botanist with the state's Department of Natural Resources. Over coffee, I pitched my idea. She laughed. "I'm not helping you build a weapon, Henry." I grinned. "It's not a weapon. It's a garden. A very persuasive garden." She shook her head but agreed to help. With Ellen's connections, I sourced plants that looked innocent but packed a punch. Poison ivy with glossy leaves, poison oak masquerading as a shrub, stinging nettle hidden behind ornamental grasses. I blended them with lavender and mint to mask the menace. To the untrained eye, it was a charming recovery project. To me, it was a trap wrapped in beauty. When Margaret first passed by, she barely noticed. By day 3, she paused, sniffed, and said, "Much better, less garish." I smiled and invited her to take a closer look. She brushed a leaf poison ivy, naturally, and within hours, I heard she'd left a book club meeting, scratching furiously, blaming allergies. I kept up the act, watering, pruning, even submitting a fake plant list to the HOA with Latin names I invented. The garden grew into a heart-shaped masterpiece, drawing compliments from neighbors who had no clue what lurked beneath. Margaret, though, couldn't stay away. She circled like a vulture, snapping photos, plucking leaves for evidence. Each visit left her redder, itchier, and more unhinged. At an HOA meeting, she stormed in with bandaged hands, waving blurry pictures of my yard, claiming I was growing illegal vegetation. The board, tired of her tantrums, dismissed her. She stomped out, vowing to handle it herself. I was ready. I'd installed a camera in my window and got footage from a neighbor's porch cam. One night, I caught Margaret sneaking into my yard, flashlight in hand, snipping a poison oak vine she thought was jasmine. She scratched her neck before she even left. The next day, she was a mess gauze on her arm, sunglasses hiding swollen eyes. At an emergency HOA meeting, she accused me of poisoning her. I calmly presented my plant registry and invited the board to inspect my garden. 5 members came, clipboards in tow. I showed them the mint, the grasses, the new roses I'd started replanting. The toxic plants were too well hidden. They left impressed, and Margaret got a formal warning to stop harassing residents. Her desperation peaked with a fake community garden parade she organized to snoop on yards. At my place, she poked around, wincing as she brushed a nettle patch. A board member, Susan, praised my garden's design, and Margaret nearly exploded. Then came her fatal mistake, a brunch party where she led guests into my yard without permission. They brushed against ivy and oak, and by evening, half were in urgent care with rashes. I showed the board footage of her trespassing. She was hit with complaints, including one from a realtor who lost a sale after a client got sick at the brunch. Her credibility crumbled. The final blow came at an HOA meeting where she pitched a draconian rule: ban all plants except 4 bland species. The room erupted in disbelief. Susan presented evidence of Margaret's yard invasions, including a photo of her snooping in a bathrobe. The board suspended her as president. She tried to sue me for endangerment, but my documentation plant lists, footage, expert letters tanked her case. The judge dismissed it and warned her against frivolous lawsuits. A neighbor, Tom, leaked emails showing she'd faked complaints and forged approvals for years. The HOA stripped her of all rights, and Susan was elected president. Margaret's house fell into disrepair. Her lawn grew wild, her shutters peeled. She vanished from sight, and a for sale sign went up. A young couple, Lila and Nate, moved in, bringing warmth and banana bread. At a block party of first-in-years kids played, neighbors laughed, and Susan toasted to freedom from tyranny. My garden, now legendary, drew visitors who admired its roses and whispered about its bite. I joined the landscaping committee, teaching residents about plants, including how to spot poison ivy. One morning, Margaret appeared at my door, haggard, announcing she was leaving. "You won, Henry," she muttered. I didn't gloat. "I just wanted my garden back," I said, and shut the door. The roses bloomed again, defiant in the soil where my grandmother's ashes lay. The neighborhood exhaled, fences became invitations, and my garden stood as a testament to patience and strategy. I posted one last photo online, anonymously, the yard glowing in sunlight, roses vibrant, ivy coiled like a guardian. The caption read, "Grow beauty, but let it defend itself." It went viral in our little corner of the internet. What do you think about Henry's revenge? Was his use of nature as a weapon justified, or did he cross a line? How do you handle injustice in your own life through confrontation, strategy, or something else? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's debate the balance between justice and vengeance. Your voice matters.